All right, let me ask you this. Isn't it a fact that in January of 2019, the Federal Reserve issued a warning to Silicon Valley Bank over its risk management systems?
I have no idea. I'm not responsible in any way.
But you're in charge of the banking bailouts and the crisis, right?
I am not involved in banking supervision, and I don't have access to any information about the supervision of Silicon Valley Bank.
Okay, so you don't know whether or not the Fed, you haven't looked to see whether or not the Fed issued a warning, 4 years ago to the bank over its risk management systems?
That's not public information, and it's not
Sure it is.
information.
It's in the Wall Street Journal.
Well, it may be in the Wall Street Journal, but it's not public information, and it's not information that I have access to.
Well, I'll give you a copy of this article.
I've read the article, but
the Fed issued a matter requiring attention, and it said your risk management practices are terrible, and you need to improve them.
that is what the article says.
Right. Isn't it a fact that months before SVB went under, that the bank disclosed that its mark-to-market value of its bonds was $16 billion less than their balance sheet value?
They did make such a statement.
Did the people at the Federal Reserve just not read it?
I'm not at the Federal Reserve.
I know.
I was at the Federal Reserve.
But you're at the Treasury, and you're in charge of the banking crisis. Let me ask you.
I am not in charge of the supervision of the bank.
Let me ask you this. Senator Hinder talked about the 2018 amendments to the Dodd-Frank Act. Isn't it a fact? Now, SVB was not stress tested in 2022. 34 banks were. Here's the Fed's report. Isn't it a fact that if SVB had been stress tested, it would have passed?
Stress tests look at capital of a bank.
Here's the yes, ma'am. Under the stress test, isn't it a fact that SVB would have passed?
I don't know. It wasn't stress tested.
You need to look into that, Madam Secretary.
This is not my job. This is the Federal Reserve's job.
Okay, isn't it a fact that when the Federal Reserve stress tested in 2022, it only stress tested credit risk, it didn't stress test duration risk? Isn't that a fact?
I believe the stress tests in general partially address and take account of interest rate
No,
risk.
ma'am. I've read it. Here it is, bigger than Dallas.
Well, to the extent that there are assets held in an available for sale portfolio that would suffer losses due to changing interest rates, that would be captured in the bank's
No, ma'am,
capital.
it's not there. I've read it.
Senator Kennedy, I've allowed people the secretary to stray over answers that were asked before the time went out, but not a series of questions after the time went out. But
Sure, I get it. I understand, Mr. Chairman.
Another hearing. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Senator.
Scout's honor, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, I thought I understood your proposed budget. I want to walk you through it again. Isn't it a fact that the President's proposed budget increases spending by $500 billion over the current budget?
There is an increase in 24 over 23 by about that much
Okay.
in outlays.